Warsaw, the bustling capital city of Poland, is no different than most U.S. cities. Well, except its history dates back over 1,000 years, compared to the infancy of just 250 years in the United States. Just a few hundred kilometers to the east is the relatively new country of Ukraine, which established its independence less than 30 years ago, but not at the pleasure of neighboring Russia. Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe, has a population close to that of California, about 40 million people, and is about the size of Texas. But all of that changed on February 24th of this year, when for the second time in less than a decade, Russia's President Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine in an effort to take back what he believes should be Russian territory. The Ukrainian people want their independence, and there's no sign of President Volodymyr Zelensky waving the white flag anytime soon. After my first tour of western Ukraine back in March, I decided to travel east to the capital city of Kiev with a team delivering humanitarian aid. Traveling through Ukraine isn't easy. The roads are pitted with potholes and vast agricultural lands that span hundreds of miles between populated areas. There's a curfew in Ukraine, and it's lights out between dusk and dawn in most cities to avoid becoming a target of Russian rocket attacks. The one thing missing from the billions of stars visible at night is air traffic. If you hear helicopters or aircraft, it's usually accompanied by air raid sirens, which is a constant reminder that the enemy could attack at any moment. Our first stop on the way to Kiev was the city of Boryanka, or what is left of it. This and many other cities that lie on the outskirts of Kiev were nearly decimated from earlier Russian attacks. Many women and children fled to neighboring countries like Poland, Belarus, and even Russia. The ones who stayed are still living in crumbling shells of what they used to call home. A child's playground that used to be filled with laughter is now silent against a burned-out apartment building and vehicles riddled with bullet holes. As you can see, the building behind me, this is in Boryanka, and it's just north of Kiev. This was a business building, they say, a government building where officials worked here in the city. Again, the letter V that's been painted all over this building is representative of the Russians who came through here and destroyed this town. Our team stopped at a nearby church to deliver humanitarian aid to hundreds of displaced residents who struggle every day just to get a hot meal. Just down the road at a nearby community park, the Polish government installed these container pods that will be used as living quarters for displaced residents. They hope to provide temporary shelter for over 20,000 Ukrainians who lost their homes due to Russian aggression. The remaining journey to Kiev took us through several villages that were completely destroyed by shelling and missile attacks. The roadways are grooved from the weight of Russian tanks, peppered with craters, and lined with mounds of scorched, twisted metal. Security is tight, especially around Kiev, and every few miles there are military checkpoints where soldiers inspect vehicles and passports. On the journey back to Poland, we stopped at a community center in Lutsk, where volunteers produce camouflage nets for soldiers on the war front. The facility is also used to store food and medical supplies for delivery around Ukraine. Children spend their time painting and doing other arts and crafts while their fathers fight in the war.
The Russian warship there?
Irene, who is also a reserve officer, says these paintings are sold at auction to raise money for food and other goods. One painting sold for as high as $1,500, says Irene.
So I can say that we are proud of our soldiers, to be honest, because I know, we are told that everyone in the West, they thought we would fall in 2 days, 3 days, and now it's almost 18th day of the war, so we are still here. I'm in a safe place.
Farther west, we stopped at the town of Horkiv, where I had an opportunity to interview the city's mayor, Viktor Hodik. How you feel about what's happening in your country?
Як ви почуваєте себе відносно того, що відбувається в вашій країні?
Ну, звичайно, як може нормально.
So he feels like a normal person when a conqueror comes to your country and with a war. He wants to conquer your people, your country, your land, and so our mayor feels anxious, not even feel angry, and he doesn't know how a normal person can feel in that situation.
As a token of their appreciation, I was honored with a traditional doll handmade by orphaned Ukrainian children.
Town, it was made by the hands of our children with love and the thoughts and dreams about future, peaceful future of our country. So we hope it will bring you good luck too.
We then made our way to the city of Plock in western Poland, where we stopped at a shelter that houses Ukrainian refugees. One family I spoke with said their home was nearly destroyed by Russian forces during the invasion of Kharkiv. One grandmother was so distraught over losing her home that she could barely control her emotions during the interview.
Приехали домой, дом стоял, было куда нам зайти, в квартиру. Спасибо, Польше, спасибо, что приняли нас так гостеприимно.
All men between 18 and 60 are forced to stay in Ukraine and fight in the war. The older couple knows the pain of growing up as orphans because both their parents were killed at a young age during the Second World War.
My guide, Shemek Cybulski, received awards from the Ukrainian government and Orthodox Church for his generosity and tireless efforts to help soldiers and refugees with food, medical supplies, and other goods.
I'm
just a private person, says Shemek, who works with organizations to collect goods. Sometimes people help me with fuel, but most of it comes from my own pocket. I do it to help the people of Ukraine survive the war. He goes on to explain that he doesn't trust a lot of organizations because they are political and self-serving. The Ukrainians fear that as coverage of the war fades from Western media, President Putin will use that as an opportunity to launch a major campaign against Ukraine and raise the Russian flag while the rest of the world sleeps. Living among the Ukrainians is like having 4 months of post-9/11 unity. But it's a bittersweet resolve in a nation overshadowed with terror and fear that at any moment their home may fall into the hands of a tyrant. Reporting from Ukraine, I'm Tom Lemons.